Good morning and thank you for joining us on Africa This Morning. It is the 2nd of April 2014. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the leading stories.
Baby Satrin Osinya. Surgeons managed to successfully extract the bullet lodged in the 1-year-old boy's head. Kenya public transport crisis. Public service vehicle operators ground their cars after failure to beat the deadline. Ebola in Guinea. Doctors Without Borders say the Ebola outbreak that has killed 78 people is unprecedented.
Radical Mombasa cleric Sheikh Abubakar Sharif, also known as Makaburi, has been shot dead by unknown assailants. Makaburi, who was in the company of another man, was shot near the Shanzu Law Courts yesterday evening. Eyewitnesses say at approximately 6:30 p.m. last evening, some men wearing white flowing robes in a white car opened fire on Makaburi and 5 other unidentified men as the group waited for a bus after appearing at the court. The gunmen sped towards Mombasa, according to eyewitnesses' accounts. The cleric has been quoted several times in the past praising terrorist attacks in Kenya, saying it was a consequence of sending troops to Somalia. Riots broke out in several parts of Mombasa following his death. Following an attack at Jesus Church in Mombasa County on the 23rd of March 2014, where 6 people died, baby Satrin Osinya was among those who survived and was flown to Nairobi for surgery to remove the bullet in his head. The surgery was performed yesterday morning by a team of neurosurgeons who later confirmed the boy was stable.
The operation, which took place at the Kenyatta National Hospital, lasted for 3 hours. It involved extensive investigations and neurosurgical assessments and stabilization to ensure there were no neurosurgical deficits afterwards.
We went in, did an intricate surgery by safe brain dissection and localizing the bullet. We were able to accurately retrieve the bullet from where it was deeply seated and lodged. The child is currently recovering, fully moving his limbs, playing and even speaking.
The neurosurgeon confirmed that the surgery was delicate, but assured that the team was capable and had the expertise to perform such surgeries, having operated on several alike.
We have the personnel, we have the ability and the enthusiasm to do that job. My appeal is the public to come and see what we are able to do instead of people going out elsewhere. Seek what can be done locally because we are able to do it.
The attackers, who sprayed bullets on worshippers at the church, had covered their faces, and police say they are following leads and the culprits will soon be arrested. More than 100 suspects were arrested in a crackdown led by 2 senior police officers. Religious leaders strongly condemned the attacks and urged the government to act fast in apprehending the culprits and putting an end to the shed of innocent blood. The surgery follows another attack that occurred on the 31st April in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate.
Kenya's cabinet continued with their day 2 of briefing the media on the progress of their ministries during the past 12 months. On the stand yesterday were 5 ministries, among them the Ministry of Tourism, that is on an ambitious plan to rebrand Kenya. Sam Gekunyi with the following report.
In today's briefings, the Tourism Ministry admitted that terrorism is threatening the tourism sector.
The terrorism challenges that we are having in this country, we are actually segmenting our product, meaning that when we have a problem at the coast province, then we focus on our efforts in other parts of the country in terms of promoting and marketing our product.
Mining Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala said his ministry has been busy on policies. With recent discovery, the ministry plans to contribute at least 3% to the GDP this year.
We have a target as per the performance contract of raising 1 billion Kenya shillings. It is 2013-2014 to raise to 1 billion Kenya shillings, and 2014-2015 to raise 2 billion Kenya shillings.
The Ministry of Energy, that closely works with the Ministry of Mining, noted that the prospects of 100% oil discovery in Turkana are good enough, and they'll soon begin the construction of an oil pipeline from the 7 wells drilled in the area.
Involving a pipeline, a road network, we'll also do power supply, because once you do a pipeline, you got to install pumps. And of course, that power supply will not just be used for those pumps, but it also be used to spur up development in the area along the pipeline.
5,000 Kenyan schools will soon be connected to the national grid, while another 1,400 schools will be supplied with solar energy. The Energy and Petroleum Ministry looks forward to having 400,000 additional customers in the year 2014-2015. On their part, the Ministry of Tourism has admitted that the continuing terrorist attacks in Kenya have continued to hurt the tourism sector, bringing down the number of tourists in the country. The Ministry of ICT highlighted that the construction of Kenya's Silicon Valley, the Konza City, was in progress and Phase 1 is complete. The ministry is also on an ambitious plan to digitize the country, from lands registry to the registry of persons.
In the next 1 year. One is the National Digital Registration Service. We hope to create an accurate, reliable national digital register of persons, land, enterprises, and ensure that we have a framework that backs up our security and our business.
And does it take less days to transport cargo from Mombasa to Uganda? According to the Ministry of Transport, doing business in East Africa is now smooth, since the reduced numbers of roadblocks have eased cargo transport. This will further improve with the construction of the standard gauge railway. Sam Gakunyi, Ebru Africa News, Nairobi, Kenya.
Still in Kenya, but to the transport sector, public service vehicle operators in Kenya grounded their vehicles after they failed to beat a deadline to comply with the new road safety regulations. This forced commuters in most parts of the country to walk to their destinations or seek alternative means.
Transport was paralyzed for the second time this year as many matatu owners opted to ground their vehicles after failing to comply with new regulations set by the government. Only a handful of matatus were on the roads across the country as the new road safety rules took effect. Commuters were left with no option but to seek for alternative means.
The situation has remained like this since the wee hours of the morning, with bus stops filled with people stranded with no means to their destination. Most have been forced to walk to work as the few public service vehicles working today have hiked their fares.
Stranded commuters accused matatu owners of taking advantage of the situation as some were forced to spend hours at the bus stops.
It's terrible for normal people like me, who are used to really cheap fare or affordable fare, but like, why should we pay double the price?
I was supposed to be somewhere by 8, and now I'm here. I don't. Now they are charging 100 shillings. I don't have 100 shillings. It is as pathetic. They think it should be considered. They should sit down and see what they can do.
As of yesterday, 8,320 vehicles had been cleared by the National Transport and Safety Authority. Claims by matatu operators on the unavailability of digital speed governors were shot down by Director General Francis Major.
They are actually partly to blame because they knew in good time and they should have made arrangements to have these equipments around.
The Transport Ministry has promised to fast-track the inspection process.
As a country, to have an efficient and safe public service vehicle system that is owned by the private sector, that is kudos to our country. And I think that is the approach we want to take. The approach is that we want to ensure that we can have an efficient system run by the private sector that supports the national outcomes that we're looking at, because as you know, Every country has limited resources.
Annette Akisa, Ebru Africa News.
And to West Africa, medical charity Doctors Without Borders say the Ebola outbreak that has killed at least 78 people in Guinea is unprecedented. The disease has spread across the country, making it difficult to control.
The group Medicines Sans Frontiers said by the end of the week it would have around 60 international field workers with experience in working on hemorrhagic fever divided between Conakry and the southeast of the country. Its team includes epidemiologists, doctors, nurses, water and sanitation experts, as well as anthropologists. MSF said it had stepped up support for the isolation of patients in Conakry in collaboration with the Guinean health authorities and the World Health Organization. Guinean health authorities have recorded 122 suspected patients and 78 deaths. Ebola has killed almost 1,600 people since it was first observed in 1976 in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. But this is the first fatal outbreak in West Africa. No treatment or vaccine is available for Ebola, and the Zaire strain detected in Guinea has a historic death rate of up to 90%. It can be transmitted to humans from wild animals and between humans through direct contact with another's blood, feces or sweat, as well as sexual contact or the unprotected handling of contaminated corpses. WHO said it was not recommending travel or trade restrictions to Liberia, Guinea or Sierra Leone based on the current information available about the outbreak. But Senegal has closed border crossings to Guinea until further notice.
On the week that Rwanda marked 20 years since the genocide that killed at least 800,000 people, the fight to bring those responsible to justice continues.
20 years ago, in one of the worst genocides of the 20th century, at least 800,000 Rwandans were murdered in the course of 100 days. As the country prepares to commemorate its darkest days, the fight to bring those responsible to justice still continues. In the Rwandan capital, Leon Mugesera stands trial after being deported from Canada, accused of making a fiery anti-Tutsi speech in Kigali back in 1992, inciting genocide, in which he referred to them as cockroaches and suggested extermination. At the time, Leon was a member of the dominant Hutu party.
Avoir ce procès, même si le procès a eu lieu 20 ans après.
To have these trials, even if they take place 20 years later, it shows that anybody who participates in a crime is going to face justice.
De toute façon, il passera devant la justice.
After the Rwandan genocide, there came the monumental challenge of how to prosecute mass killers. The Arusha Tribunal was set up in 1994 in Tanzania, though in 2 decades they've heard just 50 cases, following allegations of corruption and the huge expense of running the trials. The vast majority of suspects have been tried in Rwanda's traditional village courts, called gacaca, through which almost 2 million were processed in a decade. 65% of those tried were found guilty and convicted, some facing lengthy prison sentences. But the legacy of those courts is fragile. Over 18,000 boxes containing files and films from the trials are housed in police headquarters, threatened by humidity, theft, and insects.
We have 1.9 million cases, and those documents are papers, we have notes, and we have to preserve all those documents because the information we have is so important for, as I said, for the history, for the memory, for education, for research.
While the archive's future remains tenuous, the Kigali Genocide Memorial Center has preserved this grim history in rooms displaying artifacts, alongside a mass grave where 250,000 are laid to rest.
We may say a generation is now current, being judged for the crimes that they committed in 1994 in Rwanda. But after 50 years, we'll have another generation that will need to learn from the experience that happened to their parents, to their grandparents, who were criminals, who were survivors.
The Memorial Center is one of dozens of commemoration sites scattered throughout the country, all designed to create a collective memory of Rwanda's past and ensure that evil of this magnitude never happens again.
To the Indo-Asian peninsula, the search for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 is the most challenging ever seen. According to the man responsible for coordinating the search, Air Chief Marshal Angus Houston said the continued search for the plane could take weeks.
It's become all too routine. Search planes looking for Flight 370 return home with no sighting of the missing Malaysia airline plane. It's believed to have gone down in the southern Indian Ocean March 8. Another scene repeated almost daily. Transport officials telling the families of the 239 people on board that the search for the plane will go on for as long as it takes.
We find ourselves in a difficult position. And I repeat, the question that the families principally want answered is the question we simply do not have the answer to, namely where their loved ones are and where is MH370.
So the families do one of the only things they can do. More than 100 Chinese relatives of the missing passengers have kept vigil at this Beijing hotel for over 3 weeks, praying but also voicing their anger over the handling of the investigation.
They just say, sorry, this is under investigation, or I don't know about it, and I was not responsible for this. When it came to key questions, they just explained some basic things about the airplane that I can find out on the internet. It's totally useless.
A total of 20 aircraft and ships have been scouring the remote seas off Australia's southwest coast for the missing Boeing 777. Their greatest problem, the sheer size of the search area. It's roughly the size of Poland. The families pray, but time is running out. The battery of the plane's flight recorder locator ping could die in about a week.
The trial of 3 Al Jazeera journalists accused of aiding terrorism and spreading false news has been adjourned to the 10th of April. The court also denied Peter Grest, Mohammed Fahmy and Baher Mohammed bail. The journalists have spent nearly 100 days in jail since their arrest.
An Egyptian court is denying bail to 3 Al Jazeera journalists accused of aiding terrorism and spreading false news. Australian Peter Grest, Canadian Mohammed Fahmy, and Egyptian Baher Mohammed were held in a cage for most of the proceedings. Although Grest could be heard speaking to the judge just briefly.
I am correspondent with 30 years of experience. I arrived in Cairo 2 weeks before my arrest. As you can see, I rely on the assistance of the trainer. My knowledge of Arabic is practically zero.
Officials say the men raised suspicions by operating without proper credentials, a charge the 3 men in Al Jazeera called absurd. The case was moved to April 10th, the 3rd delay since their arrest in December. Their frustration was evident. Grest's brother Mike.
Well, this is the point of this is the whole frustration we have. We know that there's nothing to be shown on the tapes. There's nothing incriminating. So it's just a process, but the process is being delayed completely unnecessarily in my view.
Al Jazeera, which is based out of Qatar, has seen its ties with Egypt strained in the past year. Much of it due to Cairo's belief that the Gulf state was supporting the now outlawed Muslim Brotherhood movement.
Still on Matters Media, but back here in Kenya, the film industry is now picking up thanks to growing support from the government, which has introduced measures for the development of infrastructure and the promotion of the sector. Piracy has been one of the challenges facing the creative industry. Ebru Africa's news reporter Agnes Kakunga brings us the story.
And the Oscar goes to Lupita Nyong'o.
The success of the Mexican-Kenyan actress Lupita Nyong'o, who acted as Patsy in the international movie 12 Years a Slave, has boosted the Kenya's film industry, as well as prompted the government to ensure that creative arts are not ignored.
And I would like to appeal to the industry to be proactive in suggesting, in promoting legislative and administrative measures that we in government ought to take on board.
though the industry has continued to face various challenges, with piracy being the main threat, there has been significant changes. Although Kenya is yet to record a film-making success story like that of Nigeria's Nollywood, the rapidly growing Riverwood is causing a stir, and it may soon form a key part of the country's future growth agenda by creating employment opportunities among the youth.
While filmmakers and producers compete on global marketplaces, the challenges faces are often similar, whether the filmmakers operate in developing or more mature audiovisual markets.
Players in the film industry are excited as they prepare to make entries into counties and make filming an economic mainstay.
That story brings us to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at the conversations on our social media platform segment on Trend.